G'day. Since I made up my computer stand, I've been looking around and thinking the rest of my workspace looks a little bit shabby in comparison. Now, one thing that I have been meaning to do for a while is make up a bracket for this. This is a little convex mirror. You can buy them to put on your rear vision mirrors. But I've had one of these sitting on my desk for quite some time because I'm going a bit deaf in one ear. I don't always hear people coming up behind me, and so hopefully I can see a little bit of movement. So today I'm making up a mount for this. It's just a simple thing out of plastic, but I'm going to put a ball joint in there simply because I can. So hang around for the ride. This is the basic plan. There's my mirror. I'm going to have a piece up here with a thread on it, another piece here with a thread on it, and that'll just screw together. And then in the back I'm just going to have a tapered socket with a ball in it, a couple of nuts that I can clamp onto a bit of sheet metal bracketry. I haven't worked out what that's going to look like yet, and I don't think that too many people want to see that. To secure this, I'm going to clamp it with a couple of screws on basically a large washer, and that should clamp that up enough. It might be a bit awkward depending on how round I can get that ball. If I can get that ball beautifully round, then I won't have a problem. But if it's got a bit of ovalness to it, then I will. And that's a function of setting up the ball turning device on my lathe. Horrible things to try and get to absolute sphere, but I should be able to get that to within 0.1, 0.2. Whether that's good enough is another matter. We'll see. The first part I'm making is the nut, and I've just got a piece of, I think it's Delrin, chucked up. I've put a step in there, which is the OD of the mirror, and then another step which is the ID of the frame around the mirror. And so what will happen then is that once I've got this threaded, I'll part that off and I'll have a nut. Now I'm leaving the outside big at the moment because I want to do the threading next, and I don't want eventually I want to have this about a 2mm wall section, and I don't want the threading tool pushing into the work, distorting it slightly and then bringing it back. So that's why that's thicker than it's finally going to be. So that'll be the second to last operation, probably before parting it off. The other thing with the threading is, and I talked about this before, is because this is plastic, I'm going to use something like a 20 TPI thread. I'm going to try and do that all in one hit, in one go, so that I don't get lots of fluffy bits of swarf. Here's the nut, and as you can see, just a little bit of thread in there, but the mirror sits in there quite nicely. I've got probably 2.5, 3 threads, which should be enough. It's only a light clamping thing. I need to come back and probably thin out this a little bit and put a chamfer on the edge there, but until I have another part to screw that onto and to hold it, that's a bit too floppy to do that. This is the roughed out Blankel, near finished blank for the back of this nut. I've done it this way so that I can once again do a single pass with the threading tool and then try the nut on, and if that doesn't quite work I could then take a little bit more off. It would have been nicer to do it around the other way perhaps, because there's some features I could have put in the back of the boss here, but length of material and a few other considerations meant that it wasn't going to be practical. So here's my rear mount. The nut screws on there quite nicely, so that's all good, and the mirror sits in there like so, and that'll screw on. So I've now got a mirror mount. I've decided to put a socket on the back of this mirror, and I have a ball joint, so a ball and socket arrangement as you have on car mirrors. This is my radius turning device. I've made it up myself. This is what's generally called an up and over type device, and it's just you're dragging you're moving the cutting tool along a radius here with a handle. I've got this down to around about 14.5mm, which is what I want. I'm now going to take this down to 1/4 inch and put a thread on there, and that's how I'll attach this to the bracket that I'm making up. After a bit of polishing with some wet and dry on some emery on a backing board, that's come up quite nicely. I've now put a texture line there. I'm going to use a variation on my screw cutting without putting a run-in groove or run-out groove there. I'm just going to start here. I want to put a 1/4 inch thread there. That's what that size is. That's what the tool will do. That's what the lathe can do without any dramas. So I can put 2 nuts back to back on the side of a sheet metal bracket. Here's the finished part. I've run down with a 1/4 inch die just to clean up the thread and make sure it's on size, so I should be able to put a couple of 1/4 inch nuts on that without any dramas. I'll sandwich a piece of sheet metal between those and that'll hold my my ball. The socket, if all things are wonderful, I'd have a cutter just the same size as that. For this, it probably doesn't matter too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 60-degree hole in there using a 60-degree countersink I've got, and that'll support it there and there. And then on the back here, I'm just going to have a plate with a large hole in it, which will just give it enough movement to do its swivelly, rotatey thing. I've got my ball. I've got the nuts on it. Now, before I put the 60-degree countersink in there that'll act as a socket for this, I want to make up a clamp plate. So I've got my backing piece. I've put a 6mm dowel in there and I've put a 6mm hole in the clamping plate. And so what I'm next going to do is mark out the holes on here, and then I can spot through. Now, I'm going to use some M4 screws for that, so I want to have these things spaced back a little bit. So I'm going to use my odd log calipers on the inside to scribe myself a circle, sorry. Pick a spot pretty much at random for the first hole, centre pop that, and then using the dividers, just go around until I get that run about equal. So that's it there. It's a bit of a trial and error process, just picking a point on the circle and then just sort of scribing some arcs, finding the centre of the arc, and then scribing and checking that distance is equal to that distance is equal to that distance. So I'll now drill those for the screws, and then I can go back to the lathe and take that hole out to the right size and put a chamfer in there. Another tip to make your life easier. Once I drill those 3 holes, I then position that on there, and after I drill the first hole, I put another drill bit the same size in, and then I could go around and spot those. So that's now locked in, and if I move that around, I've got equal spaced holes spotted through, so I should be able to position this pretty much anywhere I like, and everything will be fine. But it's handy to have a second set of drills around the place for using as pins if you don't have a set of gauge pins. That's the finished ball joint. The clamp plate is adjustable with the 3 screws, and one thing about these is you've got to make sure that ball is very round. This one isn't quite as round as it could be. I may have to remake that. The other possibility is I might also see about putting something like an O-ring or something in the bottom of this, just to act as a bit of a resilient cushion. But it should be good enough. All I need to do now is a bit of sheet metal bracket, which I won't bore you with. That'll all mount up like that. So I can adjust where the mirror's looking through a reasonable amount of range. Thanks for watching. Please spread the word, and we'll see you for the next one.